Welcome back to another episode of the Draw Control podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by grad student on the Duquesne women's lacrosse team, Lindsay Newton. In her college lacrosse career, Lindsay is a three-time academic All Big Ten selection member and a Big Ten Distinguished Scholar as well. Before college with Upper St. Clair, Lindsay scored more than 100 goals and was named on the first team All-League. She led the Panthers to a 16-2 record and WPIAL finals appearance in 2019. She was the team MVP as a junior with team high in goals and a WPIAL quarterfinal run. Lindsay was also selected to the 2018 US Lacrosse Women's National Tournament representing Western Pennsylvania. Welcome to the podcast, Lindsay, and thank you so much for coming on today. How's everything going?
It's been going really well. It's a Sunday, so it's a little slow and rainy here in Pittsburgh, but I'm excited to be on and to answer all your questions.
Well, I'm excited to have you on as well. Yeah, the weather outside is very gross right now, but hopefully we can make that a little bit better with a good podcast today. So I sort of want to start off the podcast just sort of talking about your upcoming season. So obviously you recently transferred to Duquesne. So what made you want to use your final year of eligibility, and how did you end up committing to Duquesne for the upcoming season?
Yeah, occupationally, I knew that I really wanted to go into counseling, and if I was even thinking about joining the portal, a program needed to be available for me to join. Um, Over the summer, I talked to my dad about what program he thought would be really interesting, and I knew that I kind of wanted to stay closer to home after being a good 6.5 hours away for 4 years of my life already. So I reached out to the Duquesne coach after I got into their grad program, and she was more than happy to interview me and look at film. And here I am on the team. So it's been fun. And we're really excited for the upcoming season.
Yeah. Has there been any adjustment you've had to make to your game being new on the team? And how have you tried to get to know everybody and learn the team systems?
Yeah, I would say the biggest adjustment was definitely, first of all, the time of practice. At Rutgers, the practices were usually in the middle of the day or later evenings, whereas at Duquesne, because it is a health science school and a lot of people have a long period of class, we had to wake up around like 4:30 in the morning to go to practice at like 5 or 6. So that was the biggest adjustment to my game. And then playing with a lot of new transfers coming in, I would say was a really interesting experience thus far. Basically, our entire attack, aside from maybe like 3 or 4 people, are all brand new girls. So that's really exciting. And I think just getting used to different chemistry, how people play with their sticks, how they drive, etc., was ultimately the biggest change.
Yeah, hopefully you're a morning bird instead of a night owl because
You're lucky I am.
because that's tough, guy. That's gotta be tough to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Even that sounds
Yep,
like I don't know if I could do that. So
it's rough.
kudos to you.
Thank you.
What was fall ball like for your team? What did you take away from those games that you played, especially since, it's a new conference for you as well, so it must be sort of different type of competition that you're going to face this year.
Yeah, definitely a big difference of who we got to play. I'm pretty used to playing teams that are closer around like Rutgers, Philly, New Jersey area. And I was lucky enough to be able to play teams that are closer to Pittsburgh. So we played against the two biggest teams that we played against were Ohio State and Pitt. So Big Ten and ACC teams. Those are really big competition. I think overall the fall we did really well. We're just getting to learn brand new chemistries of people coming from a lot of different places and how we all mesh well together. So it's been a lot of fun. We were successful in some games and not so much in others, but at the end of the day, I think every mistake is a learning opportunity. So you just have to take it as it is and move forward.
And individually, what would you say your off season and fall was like in regards to training? What were some things that you sort of wanted to work on for the upcoming season? Especially since this is your fifth year, so there's probably some things you want to work on, but you also sort of know what to expect at this point, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would hope so, right? I think the biggest thing for me was making sure that my recovery was on point, knowing that my body had gone through 4 years of essentially a job. It was a lot. So what I really wanted to focus on was how I could go out each morning, do everything that I could, come back. And my classes in the grad school are actually really late at night, so my days are very long. And that was a very large adjustment and something that I needed to focus on in the fall. I also really appreciated having a smaller roster. So in comparison to a team that had 40 plus girls, Duquesne has around like 30. that 20 some that are like able to play right now that aren't injured. So a lot of individual play, a lot of reps, and that was huge for me. I love getting on the wall, but when you're out there with girls and you can get as many passes as you can during practice, that's the best.
Now, obviously, you're a very smart person with all the academic awards that you received with Rutgers. I'm curious how you've sort of learned to balance academics and lacrosse at such a high level, and how has it been like doing it this year at Duquesne with your grad program being kind of a different schedule than sort of undergrad?
Yeah, I think if anyone were to know me, then know that I'm a very organized person and my life kind of runs on routine. So getting in a really good routine, whether it's morning, day, or night, is probably the biggest thing on my list to make sure that I have done. And that helps me balance school and lacrosse. Grad program is a little different because I'm not tested on a lot of things like I was in undergrad. And because I'm in a health science, a lot of my like testing is like clinicals. So making sure that like I'm dealing with patients properly, understanding how to read diagnoses and certain cues. So it's different but fun.
Yeah. Now, what are your team's goals and expectations for next season? Obviously, you want to have win the national championship, but you got to take it one step at a time. So I'm curious what if your team has sort of talked about some of the goals that you might have.
Yeah, Coach Corinne does a great job of telling us that it's one step at a time, just as you said. Although national championship would be great, right now we're just focusing on making sure that we're doing really well in the A10. We really want to come out and be one of the top teams, if not the top team in the conference, and that would help us along the way. So it's a little different than I think what I've experienced at Rutgers, whereas that was more like let's get to the number one spot. Realistically, I think at Duquesne, especially with a brand new team, essentially, it's let's see what we can do here and we'll make the larger step later.
Now, what do you want to see yourself accomplish individually for your final year?
It's my experience so far has been so different that I'm actually getting a lot more playing time than I did at Rutgers. So for me, a lot of my goals have to do with actually scoring and making sure that I'm having the most fun that I can, especially because it is my last year.
So let's transition now and talk about the beginning of your lacrosse career and sort of work all the way up to where you are today. So you're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Talk about growing up there and how did you start playing lacrosse? Because I know Philadelphia is sort of a big lacrosse area, but I'm not sure if Pittsburgh is as big as Philadelphia in that regard.
Yeah, I think Haley touched on it a little bit, but Pittsburgh is definitely an underrated city, both lacrosse wise and culturally, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, Lacrosse world is very, very small here. I started playing club in sixth or seventh grade. I took a year off and then I came back. And it's very different. We play all of our tournaments kind of in like the Midwest. So we get a little bit of the experience of Philly and Jersey and New York girls and Maryland, where, lacrosse thrives and it's basically its home base. But aside from that, not as much. And I think my sister made a really great decision by deciding to transfer to a team in club that was in Maryland based. So she got a little bit of a larger experience, like swimming with more fishes in the pond, I guess. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a difficult journey, but I'm so thankful for it all the way.
And growing up, did you have like a favorite lacrosse team or player that you like to watch?
I didn't have a player. I loved watching everyone, but me and my sister were big on UNC. Carolina Blue all the way. We used to watch the basketball team with my mom and transition to lacrosse, seeing the similarities. So,
Yeah. It must be sort of weird now because you want to beat UNC, especially, going to Rutgers and Haley going to USC.
right. Yep.
Now, let's talk about Haley because you do have a younger sister, Haley, who currently plays for USC, really good player. And when I asked her about what it was like growing up with you, she had a lot of nice things to say and how you were such a role model for her and how you guys have really sort of pushed each other to get where you are today. So I just want to ask you from your perspective, being the older sister, what was it like growing up with her and how has she sort of helped you in your lacrosse career?
Yeah, it's funny that she thinks of me as a role model because truthfully, I think of her as one. I always thought that she was a step ahead of me in lacrosse and in all things, I was the soccer player. She had to try really, really hard at other sports to get that good, but naturally her lacrosse talent was peak and I loved watching her play. I got a really cool experience that some people don't get to do with their siblings, and I got to step on the field with her as a senior when she was a freshman. and the chemistry was instant. We could pass to each other without even looking. It was perfect. So she's been my number one supporter, and I hope that I can be a number one supporter for her as she's continuing her career. But if anything, I think that she's a phenomenal player, and everything that she gets in lacrosse, I know that she works extremely hard for.
Do you ever talk to her after some of your games? Like, I'm curious if that happens, like if she talks to you after your games, etc. Like, I know you guys are very
Yeah.
busy, so I don't know if you get that chance or not.
I definitely have texted her after games, just like any sibling would do. Nothing really about her play, but more just like a congratulations, good job, you're doing great. The one most memorable call I remember having was after my senior day, and she called me after maybe like a minute after the game had ended, and we love talking to each other and being each other's supporters through that. So it's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hopefully someday, maybe in the tournament, USC can play Duquesne. I think that would be kind of fun
That would be
for that
sick.
time.
I'll pray for that one.
Now, before college, you played for your high school in Upper St. Clair. Talk about your high school lacrosse experience and what you took away from it, and what's like your favorite memory from that time of your life when you look back on it now.
Yeah, I was one of two freshmen that made varsity. So I played varsity all 4 years. My experience was nothing short than a roller coaster. It had its highs, it had its lows, but everything that I took from it just made me more an adverse player. Skill wise, I don't think that my high school career or my high school in general was really like the backbone of how I gained my skill, but I met some really great girls. It helped me learn how to be on a team where not everyone is friends, but that you can all come together with one goal in mind at the end of the day. And my favorite memory from high school was either my senior year when I got to play with my sister, that whole season in general, or my sophomore year. I played midfield then, and I got the draw, and I remember scoring in 7 seconds. And a week or two late earlier, I think it happened in the NCAA, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm just like these college girls," and that was huge for me.
That's awesome. I think Haley
Yeah,
said it was her freshman year was her favorite year, so I feel like you
yeah.
gotta go with your senior year for that one.
We had a good team. I'll put it to that. We definitely had a very talented team, and a lot of the girls ended up playing in college, so it was awesome.
How do you think your experience with Upper St. Clair helped prepare you for college lacrosse? Because obviously you're playing against other commits, so that must make the transition easier since you sort of know what to expect.
Yeah, I got a lot of my skill. I would say, mostly how I got better was playing with my sister outside of high school. We had one coach. Her name is Caitlin Prince. She ended up coaching at Oregon, if you ever look her up. And she taught us everything that we needed to know. And I absolutely love her for it. And I thank her for it. I think she did like one or two, I want to say, clinics with the Upper St. Clair high school team. But really, high school just showed me how like that you have to watch lacrosse to get really good at it. I think a lot of girls just want to step out on the field and play, play, play. But at the end of the day, if you're not seeing your mistakes, you can't really alter them. So that was what high school really taught me. First time I watched film.
Yeah. Well, talk about your recruiting process with Rutgers. What made you want to go there versus other schools you might have looked at? And yeah,
Yeah, I Rutgers was definitely in my top two by the first week. On September 1st of my junior year, because the rule had just changed, I got an email from Rutgers who who was coached by Coach Brand at the time. So Melissa wasn't in office yet. And she emailed me with a massive poster that said, "We want you to be a Scarlet Knight." And my eyes lit up because I saw that Big Ten and I got so excited. I'm like, oh my God, a Big Ten school. Within like 2 or 3 weeks, I ended up traveling to New Jersey and meeting with Brand. I actually got to see the class above me at the time. They were on their official visit. So I met all the girls, realized how quickly we meshed together, and that I was not only being recruited for my skills, but also because of my personality and how she thought that I would fit with these girls. And then we went to the football game, and Rutgers Stadium at night is one of the coolest things ever. Everything goes red. We have the big fireworks coming up. They were playing Ohio State, so it's not like the score was really that good. But I do remember having that good core experience of I have to come here. And I'm so grateful for that because I don't think a lot of people get to experience that where they first choose to go to college. So knowing that I had that experience of where I wanted to go to school and also for lacrosse was huge for me.
yeah. You must have been really jealous this year because I think Rutgers played Ohio State in a very close game. It was they almost won
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, they were winning at halftime. I did watch that game. It was insane.
Now, as a freshman, what was like the biggest adjustment you had to make to college lacrosse?
Right. So a lot of the girls that were at Rutgers were from all the states that were very, very popular with lacrosse. So coming in, I had to play a little bit of catch up in my IQ, and I spent a lot of time asking questions. So that was huge for me. A lot of time watching lacrosse and a lot of time asking questions. The biggest adjustment was understanding how the game is actually played at the collegiate level. There's definitely some rule changes, but the fast pace, the athleticism, the different age groups. You're now playing, I'm 22 and I'm still playing, you know what I mean? So that was huge. And as a freshman, I think it took a little bit of an adjustment to realize that this is a lot. And what a lot of people don't understand or don't really know before they come and play at the Division I level, especially in the ACC and Big Ten, it's a job. It is a 9 to 5 job, and you eat, sleep, breathe lacrosse. So that was massive.
I know you mentioned that you're a grad student, but the rules have changed a little bit for the upcoming season. I saw that there was a lot more red or yellow cards, I think, in
Yes,
the mid. So how have you sort of adjusted that? Because I think sometimes refs were pretty strict about calling some of those, which can affect how you approach the offensive side of the game.
absolutely. Transition is a huge part of lacrosse. And with the rule changes, I think it's going to make the game, I want to say safer, but at the same time, it's extremely frustrating hearing that whistle and the yellow card go up all super fast. The biggest thing for us is that we were getting them all the time. I mean, girls were getting carded out left and right because it was originally just a green card. You get the card and you keep playing. It's three, you're out. But the immediate yellow is a lot. And although there are safety rules behind it, I think that it's really frustrating. So for us, the biggest thing that we've had to learn is safety and control to make sure that we're not only protecting our sticks when we're cradling and have possession, but also when we don't have possession, how are we positioning our bodies in the best way to get the ball back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm hoping that maybe they're just a little whistle heavy in the fall, just so
Yeah.
the refs can adjust to it, and then in the spring it's not gonna be as bad. But
Yeah.
I do find it, I say this all the time, I find it ironic because so many people in lacrosse want the game to not take as long. It's like we gotta get the game under 3 hours,
Yeah.
make it 2.5 hour game for TV reasons. But then we create a rule that makes the game take much longer than it has to be.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Now, talk about what it was like playing in the Big Ten and just the competition that you face each game. It must be really cool to play teams like Maryland, John Hopkins, Penn State, Michigan, like,
Yeah.
and Northwestern. Like, that's got to be really cool to play those teams
Oh my
every
gosh.
year.
It was so fun. I really do enjoy, like, love watching lacrosse. And if there were games that I wasn't necessarily playing in, especially against the really hard teams, I wasn't in a position yet where that was an opportunity for me. I absolutely loved watching girls like Izzy Skane just rip back in that, even if it was against us, which I hate to say, but it was so cool. And to cheer on my friends during those moments against girls who are at the top of the game, that was probably the coolest experience ever. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love it. Yeah,
Well, Rutgers has some good players too that are fun to watch. So
absolutely. Yeah.
now, during your freshman year, the season was cut short due to the pandemic. How did you handle that challenge of having your first year get cut short, but also having to prepare and stay in shape with so many restrictions and uncertainty at that time? I guess now it's sort of kind of like it brought you to Duquesne, so it sort of feels probably a little bit different now compared to when it was going on in
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, the pandemic was huge. I remember I roomed with a girl named Jess Beneducci at the time, and I remember us coming back to collect all of our stuff, and it was like a ghost town, and Rutgers is never a ghost town. So that was a bit frightening. Keeping up with workouts was really, really easy just because immediately when we were sent home, our coaches within a week or two had a list of certain runs, lifts, et cetera, that we could do within our household. So it's not like we were needing to go to the gym. And that was really helpful. We also did a lot of skills training through a private Instagram account that Rutgers held. So it was motivating everyone to get outside and to continue to train, even though, you can't really connect with people in person yet. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you like those, did you like those at-home workouts? Do you think they were effective, or is it going to the gym and sort of doing it that way more effective in your opinion? Because I'm sort of curious how people feel about that.
Yeah, at home workouts that I think are effective to me would be like walking, running around your neighborhood. I definitely think if you want to train like an athlete, though, you need to go to a gym,
Yeah.
which for me, I personally like that better. So
Yeah. I feel like for cardio reasons, you can do
Yeah.
anything at home, like just get a treadmill or high or like a rowing machine, and
Yep.
that's a good way. But I feel like for like body weight stuff and like trying to get stronger, I feel like a gym's probably a better place for that, at least from my perspective of how from my reflecting on it now.
Yeah, I remember our strength trainer at the time was like, find something in your house that's just really heavy. I
Yeah,
was like, I don't know if I want to be squatting with a vacuum, but okay.
yeah, yeah. But my cardio was good during that time, so at
Yep.
least it made up for it a little bit. So. Now, throughout your time with Rutgers, your team made it to two NCAA tournament appearances. Talk about what it was like being part of those tournament teams and runs and the experience you had, I guess, going through those experiences, because that must be a lot of fun. It felt like you always lost, though, to the same team every
Yes.
year.
Yeah, you're spot on with that one. The experience itself was awesome. I think that if you are on a team that's lucky enough to make it to the tournament, make the most of it, you know? It's one of the coolest experiences ever to see that it makes you feel that all of your work is actually worth something, essentially. Like you've done so great, now you get to you reap the benefits and you get to go to the tournament. So that was awesome. And watching the teams that also were there, also awesome. We did make it twice, and we did make it to the second round both times. And unfortunately, we lost both times to Stony Brook. But to fast forward to our senior season, we ended up playing them actually at home at Rutgers Stadium and beat them by a good amount. So it was a good comeback, I'd say, after all those years of not making it farther in the tournament.
hmm Yeah, got some revenge. That's always a lot of fun.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned how you love watching lacrosse. You even said like it was fun watching Izzy Skane score against your team, but you did get to play with one of the best Big Ten players in the past few years in Cassidy Spills. What was it like watching her be a part of your team, and what's she like off the field as well? Because I think everyone sees the lacrosse skill that she has, but I'm curious if what's she like as a person, I guess, off the field.
Yeah, Cassidy is really great. She's definitely a lot more bubbly than I think people see her. You know, they see the serious face, the eye black, and on TV that can be a little intimidating. But
Hmm
off the field, she's extremely kind, and I know that she wants to make sure that everyone gets the best out of what they're experiencing. So during practice and stuff, I remember like she's very authoritative in like the best way. She's a great captain. I do think that she puts herself or she puts the team before she puts herself. And I think at the end of the day, that's one of the best things about her.
Now, individually, I would say that your senior year was the best season that you had from a statistical standpoint. So, what would you say was the biggest improvement you made to your game that led to that success?
Oh gosh. Wow. Toughie. I would think it would be athleticism at the core of it. I think that over the 4 years of me being there, me and all the rest of the team just conditioned better to get faster. And when you pick up the pace, you can then play at a faster pace. And I think that really helps against really strong teams like Maryland in the Big Ten that are extremely athletic and continue to be athletic. So that was probably the biggest change that we had made.
Now, you scored your first collegiate goal against Vermont in your senior year, and then you scored on senior day as well against James Madison. So, talk about both those goals and sort of what they meant to you.
Yeah. Vermont was awesome. That was my first collegiate goal, and unfortunately, my family was not there to see that. So I had my best friend's mom, come up and hug me after, and that was great. You know, I'd been practicing a really long time for that moment, and I could not have been more grateful to step on the field and have that happen. JMU was a tough game. That, if I'm going to be blatantly honest, 2 days before that game, I was told that I was not going to start. And as a senior, it was our senior day. So that was also a little tough. Um, I was the only senior out of seven, nine that did not start. And I did not get to play until the last 9 minutes of the game. And we were down by a lot. So it was a little disheartening. I'm not gonna lie, that day was heartbreaking for me. I remember crying for hours the night before. And then stepping out on the field and seeing the play and getting told by my assistant coach, Anna, that this is what we're going to do and we're going to call it for you. And thinking in my head, oh my gosh, okay, let's go through it. I completely blacked out. And all that I remember hearing is the ding. And that was awesome. And I threw my stick on the ground. I was the only senior that had scored that day. Um, I remember looking up to the stands. There's a great picture of me like pointing to my parents because I knew that this out of all moments is a core memory. So that whole day, like even talking about it, that was such a special experience. It was one of the first days that I felt truly loved and appreciated by my team. So
That's awesome. Was that the
yeah,
first goal your parents ever saw you score like in person at
yeah,
Rutgers?
yeah.
Oh, so that makes it
My
even more
grandpa was
special.
there too, so
Oh, that's
my
awesome.
yeah.
Now, what will you take away from your time with Rutgers? Obviously, it was kind of a roller coaster, but I'm assuming mostly positive experience from your time there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely mostly positive. I would not have made it through the 4 years without my best friends. And I think if I had to take one thing away, even if it's not lacrosse related, it would be about the relationships and friendships that I've made with the girls on the team and the people that I lived with. Those are my forever friends, and I love them, and I still try to catch up with them as much as I can today. So if that says anything, some of your friends in college and the girls on your team that have seen you at your worst, trauma bond together. You'll love each other for life.
Yeah, it's probably the same way for them though. You've probably seen them at their
Yeah.
worst, and so it's a good common bond to have.
I hope so. I agree.
Now, let's get to a segment I like to call the non-lacrosse segment, where I ask you some non-lacrosse questions just to get to know you a little bit more off the field. So, first one is if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
Sabrina Carpenter.
All right,
Both
all right.
answers, same energy.
I was worried they were going to say Blake Lively because that's what Haley said. So I thought that would be kind of weird having her play two people in the same movie. But
I'm sure she said that. Of course she did.
I always say Ryan Reynolds, or I think
Yep.
Tom Brady would be cool just
That would be
because
sick. Yeah.
I feel like I like his story a lot, so I feel like it'd be cool to have him play me,
Oh
even
yeah.
though he might not be a great actor, but I'll let it slide. Now, what is the most underrated holiday and what's the most overrated holiday?
I think the most overrated holiday, which it's funny that I say this, Valentine's Day, which I know Haley said was the most underrated one. I think the most underrated holiday is St. Patrick's Day. I feel like it's really fun.
Yeah, yeah. I would say for me, underrated Thanksgiving
Yeah.
because I feel like you don't have the pressure of like giving gifts like Christmas. It's sort of just a good time to have fun with your family. And then underrated, I would say is probably like 4th of July. That's usually a fun one. Or like Christmas
Yeah.
Eve, like one of those like obscure holidays that people don't really think too much about.
True.
Oh, who has the best off the field style on the Duquesne women's lacrosse team and the Rutgers women's lacrosse team besides yourself?
Yeah, I would say for Duquesne, Emily Curtis. She always has the cutest clothes, and I love her for that. On Rutgers, I would have to say Keely McNeamer. Yeah, McNeamer. She's such a Lululemon athletic girl, and she always looks like a cute little soccer mom. I love it.
Now, what's the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
Oh, my mom and I were actually just talking about this the other day. So the theory is that a habit is formed in 2 weeks, but actually you have your thought process solidified in 2 weeks. Your habit actually takes 67 days to form. So if you want to start a new habit, it's going to take a little longer than you think.
That's probably why it takes me a while to create some good habits, so I got to get on that.
Yeah,
Um, I would say for me, probably just like seeing so BU and BC are two big college hockey rivals, and it was the first
yeah.
time they faced off against each other as number one
Wow.
and number two in pairwise, which is the RPI version of college hockey. And yeah, it was really fun. 28 combined NHL draft picks and just a fun series to watch.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's
that's
insane.
I thought that was pretty interesting because obviously it's a pretty big rivalry, but sort of the big, I guess all the circumstances surrounding that series to make it as big as it was super interesting to watch and enjoy, especially as a neutral fan.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh.
Now, one more non-lacrosse question, which is, what is one item on your bucket list that you'd like to do one day?
I would love to travel to Bali. I think it's such a beautiful area. Indonesia is such a beautiful country. So
Yeah, I feel like that plane ride would be a little too long for me, so I feel
it
like I
is,
have.
yeah, it's a good 17 hours.
I
So,
feel like I'd stick to like West Coast, a good
yeah.
6 hour flight, like LA. Like I've always wanted to go out to California. I feel like that would be a lot of fun.
Oh, you'd love it, especially if you're into like videos and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm a
Stuff
big
like
video
this.
guy.
Yeah.
I've been trying to do more photography stuff. So I just like there's certain stuff I want to see. Like Yosemite National Park is probably the one I want to see the
Yeah.
most. I think that's near LA, like probably like 4 hours away, but
Yeah.
I think it's close by.
Yeah, you should reach back out to Haley and get in touch with Kate Dever on their team. She's great with a camera.
Oh yeah, I've seen some of her stuff. It's pretty
Yeah.
unbelievable. Now, getting back to some lacrosse questions now. First one is what should be done to help grow women's lacrosse from your perspective?
To help grow women's lacrosse, I think they're actually doing it, but implementing it one in the Olympics, I think would be really sick. And I think that that is a huge motivator, especially to the younger crowd about wanting to start the sport. And protecting Title IX. As a woman in sports, I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any teams that like have men's lacrosse teams but don't have a women's team? Because I see that all the time in
Sure.
hockey, but
Oh,
not a lot in lacrosse, at least that I can think of on the top of my head.
yeah, I can't think of one at the top of my head too. Football is such a prominent sport, so
Yeah,
spots are taken up pretty quickly.
yeah. I would say though, just add more teams like down south than like
Yeah,
Pac-12. I feel like that would be a lot of fun. To
absolutely.
make it more of a world, I guess more of a all across the country, not just in select areas. So
I agree.
now, what advice would you give to younger lacrosse players who are listening to this on what it takes to be a college player like yourself?
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of dedication. And like I said earlier, a lot of people go into playing the sport thinking that it's all fun and games. And while it is extremely fun and you might find your best friends, it is a job and it takes a lot out of your time. So think about that before you want to play. I'm not saying don't because I absolutely say do, but it does take a lot out of you.
Now, do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your family members, teammates, former teammates, and friends? And who should we have on the podcast next?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. To all of my Rutgers girls, I absolutely love you. You have completely made me the person that I am today. And for all my Duquesne girls, I'm so thankful that you have welcomed me with open arms. And then to have on the podcast, really any of the girls at Rutgers would be great. I think that that would be just to see their experience from it. But specifically, at least two of my former roommates that I think that you should look into would be Megan Ball. I think she's had a phenomenal experience at Rutgers, and she's now continuing her collegiate career for her fifth year at Maryland. So that was an interesting switch, especially because she switched within the conference. And then Jess Beneducci, who is another roommate of mine or former roommate of mine, and she's doing her fifth year at Rutgers. So both I think have had incredible experiences and would be a hoot to talk to.
Oh, for sure. We definitely got to reach out to them and see what they
Yeah.
have to say. But Lindsay, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time. I think you're a great player and an even better person. So I just want to let you know that, and super excited to see you play in the for this upcoming season. I know your team's going to do great things.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt, for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.